Yo, what is good, YouTube? Krishan checking back in with another video. If you would like to support me or the channel in any way, you can do so by liking this video and subbing to the channel. Let's talk bodybuilding. So today I'll actually be revisiting the 2017 Mr. Olympia, and all of my longtime watchers on the channel know that I really got into bodybuilding around the time of the 2020 Mr. Olympia. So everything prior to that, I wasn't in the sport while it was happening, so I had to go back and look at it. So this will also be like a fun little history lesson for me. And if you guys don't know who the guy on the end is, that is Brandon Curry, and I believe he placed 8th in this competition. And for the sake of this video, you won't be seeing 4th place Dexter Jackson, 5th place Shawn Rhoden, or 6th place Roelly Winklaar in the comparison photos, just because the photos that I found of them, they just weren't too good and you couldn't really see the detail. But don't worry, at the end of the video, I'll be breaking down the top 10. So for the sake of this video, we're really going to be comparing the top 3 and then the second call out. So let's go ahead and get into the top 3 comparison, and it's between Phil Heath, Big Ramy, and William Bonac. And in all honesty, my eyes instantly go to Big Ramy. Now, just noted that to me, this is probably the first year that Phil Heath midsection became a serious problem. And when I was putting this video together, I kind of began to see that. But take a look at the width difference, guys. Take a look at the width from Big Ramy's shoulder to the other shoulder, and then take a look at Phil Heath's width from shoulder to shoulder. I pretty much believe Big Ramy is winning this pose, even though he isn't the most conditioned and doesn't have too much separation in his quads. I would probably have Phil will probably still edge out Bonac because his arms are just bigger. Honestly, outside the midsection, Phil is good, but I'm not sure. I kind of like Bonac, but it is Phil Heath, so I would take Phil in second in this pose. And going into the front lat spread, once again, guys, it's kind of the same story. Look at the width of Big Ramy just from shoulder to shoulder. Just such a huge structure, and he doesn't have the separation in his quads. His quads look a little better here than they did in the front double. And his quads are so huge that they make his calves look small. And Phil has the midsection problem, and he also looking like he's struggling to get in the pose. Honestly, but still, Phil is just still bigger than Bonac and more muscular. And honestly, outside of the midsection, I still believe that Phil overall is better. I want to give Bonac the edge, but overall, Phil is just still better and more muscular. So I would still take Phil second and Bonac third in his front lat spread. Going on to the side chest pose, honestly, my eyes go to William Bonac's upper body first. His upper body just looks insane. And then my eyes will go to Phil Heath and then Big Ramy. But Ramy just has that crazy side leg. Phil may have the best upper body. You can see Phil's abs and some of his obliques. Bonac is just smaller than them, and he doesn't seem to have the same level of conditioning that maybe Big Ramy has in the side leg. So far, it looks like Big Ramy honestly has the edge on Phil, and I want to give this pose to Ramy, honestly, just because he has a great chest and his is a side chest, and he also has a crazy side leg. Phil does have a better upper body, but Big Ramy seems to be winning the lower body. So definitely so far looking like Big Ramy has an edge, honestly. And Fit Ops Foundation is covering up Williams Bonac's face for some reason, but Big Ramy looks uncomfortable in his pose, and his midsection also seems to be protruding some. Same with Phil Heath. Phil's legs actually look kind of small from the side, and his midsection also looks to be protruding. So a lot of people may disagree with this, but I actually like William Bonac's execution of this the most. I wish he was flexing his glutes a little more so maybe we could see some of the striations, but look at the tricep, look at the chest, look at the midsection, guys. Like, to me, William Bonac is winning this pose, and that's against Big Ramy and Phil Heath. Now, Phil Heath's tricep, oh my God, Phil Heath's delt and tricep is just on a completely another level. So, I mean, you could make the argument for Phil Heath, but I would probably put Ramy last, mostly because of the execution. And going into the back poses, and the first thing I noticed here, it seems like Big Ramy's lat insertions were more prominent in 2017 than they are now. Even in 2020, his lat insertions didn't look this good. But of course, Phil Heath by a mile, in my opinion, and then I would take William Bonac. But Phil Heath's biggest knock is him being narrow, and William Bonac is even more narrow than Phil Heath. And Big Ramy just doesn't have the definition in the glutes or the definition in the hamstrings that these guys have. And probably if some of the other guys that on the Mr. Olympia stage had very shredded hamstrings. I mean, Heidi does, but maybe if Brandon was a little more strided through the glutes and hamstrings, it may, point out that Ramy isn't, his glutes are better now, but not his hamstrings. But in his back double bicep, I would definitely take Phil Heath. And onto the rear lat spread. Even more domination by Phil Heath, in my opinion. Even though Big Ramy is a lot wider, Phil just has too much definition. Glutes too thick, hamstrings, even the calves. Look at Phil's rear delts, man. They're just like popping off his body, just like 3D. And William Bonac is kind of getting screwed here because of the camera angle. But if you guys could see, his lat insertions come all the way down to his hips, and he is striated from the glutes down, I'm pretty sure. So honestly, me personally, I would take Big Ramy last in this pose, and I honestly don't like his execution. I believe he's executing like Ronnie Coleman did. He's kind of leaning forward, and his execution now is a lot better. And once again, he just doesn't have the detail. He probably looks like he may be striding the glutes. It just isn't a good angle, but he definitely doesn't have the same level of conditioning in the hamstrings or the calf size to match Phil Heath. And on to the ab and thigh shot. And honestly, none of these guys have a great ab and thigh shot, as you can see. But this will be the last shot because the most muscular shot, all of the shots were just horrible. In all honesty, none of the guys were in the pose at the same time. And I didn't even want to disrespect any of them by putting it in there. So we will probably take Phil Heath in the most muscular pose. But once again, this isn't necessarily the judge, but overall, it does seem like Big Ramy had the edge over Phil Heath at the 2017 Mr Olympia. Phil does look a lot more conditioned in the legs, but honestly, the midsection is pretty much the only thing holding him back. So that's going to be pretty much the review for the top three, and then I'm going to get into the second call out. Now, we're not going to include 4, 5, and 6. As I said, Shawn Rhoden, Dexter Jackson was in 4th, Shawn Rhoden in 5th, Roelly Winklaar in 6th. So this call out was between 7, 8, 9, and 10, which was Nathan De Asha, Brandon Curry, Joshua Lenarowitz, and Cedric McMillian. So taking a look at this front double bicep pose, Brandon is looking, this whole call out, as you guys can see, is going to be between Brandon Curry and Nathan De Asha, which I'm hoping is another comparison we'll get to see in the future. So I'm mostly going to focus on them. And in this front double bicep pose, I will go with Brandon Curry pretty much because Nathan honestly just has the longer torso, which I feel is like throws him off. And I really like Brandon's physique more in this pose. Brandon has a better V-taper. His lats hang a lot lower. Cedric looks pretty good. He looks decently conditioned from other packages I've seen. And this Joshua Lenarowitz guy also is very conditioned too. Somewhat reminds me of Branch Warren. Now, once we take a look at the front lat spread, I actually like Nathan De Asha over Brandon Curry. Nathan is wider. Looks like he has a bigger chest. And keep in mind, guys, this is 2017. I'm not sure a lot of people know that Nathan De Asha has already placed inside the top 10 in Mr. Olympia. And this Josh guy, he's amazing. Amazing physique. He looks striated. He's huge. Kind of has a wider midsection, so I'm pretty sure he probably doesn't have the best genetic structure. He's just one of those guys that's about hard work and heavy lifting. And Sergio Mcmillan has an amazing structure, but the execution of this pose just doesn't look too good. He honestly looks asymmetrical and looks uncomfortable in this pose. So definitely have Nathan De Asha winning the front lat and Brandon Curry in second. And taking a look at the side chest, Cedric McMillan's chest was the first thing to jump out at me in this photo, in all honesty. It looks like Nathan De Asha may not be all the way into this pose or executing it correctly. Also, Joshua Lenarowitz, he doesn't seem to be flexing his lower body, or maybe just doesn't have the best lower body in this pose. So, honestly, it's between Brandon Curry and Cedric McMillan. And I can see more of Cedric's abs and obliques. So, honestly, I would take Cedric McMillan as far as this side chest pose. And onto the side tricep, and in all honesty, looks like Brandon Curry by a mile. And all of these guys have great triceps, but none of them really just have the proper execution. Josh, all the way to the left, he actually has a pretty good execution, but he just doesn't have the lower body. I'm not sure if this was later on in his career. Once again, prior to making this video, I hadn't heard of him before. Nathan De Asha has an amazing tricep, but he honestly just has a horrible execution for this pose in 2017. Arguably, if he would have executed it better, he would be challenging Brandon Curry. Cedric McMillan looks good in this pose. He looks a little uncomfortable, and he doesn't seem to be as conditioned as maybe Brandon Curry in the lower body. And Brandon Curry just has everything from the tricep to the chest to the abs, even a smile, man. So definitely Brandon Curry in his side tricep. And let's take a look at the back double bicep. Now, I'm not sure if Cedric is getting screwed in this pose because it doesn't look like he's opening up all the way. But I've honestly seen Cedric do his back double like this numerous times. It isn't my first time seeing it. But this is definitely going to be between Nathan De Asha and Brandon Curry. Joshua just doesn't look to be as conditioned as these guys in the lower body. And from what I'm looking at, Nathan looks like he has bigger legs, but Brandon Curry is more conditioned. Nathan also seems to have more detail in his back. Honestly, I'm tempted to go with Brandon Curry just because he has the edge on the conditioning, but Nathan's back and delts just look completely insane in his back double biceps. So overall, I think I would have to go with Brandon Curry, but that's just me personally. And taking a look at the rear lat spread, pretty much the same story, guys. Going to be between Nathan De Asha and Brandon Curry. Sergio Mcmillan and Joshua also just don't seem to be conditioned in the lower body enough or really have the back detail to compete with these guys. And I like Brandon Curry's detail, especially in the traps and through like his mid back. So I would definitely go with Brandon Curry and his rear lat spread as well. Nathan De Asha may be wider. I'm not sure. Brandon is a little darker, so it's kind of hard to see, but his legs look like they're just hanging, man. Even though Nathan has bigger legs, overall, I think Brandon Curry would take both of these back shots, man. And it's probably how he, even here, I can see the potential. A lot of people said they didn't see Brandon Curry becoming a Mr. Olympia. And I'm not saying I see him becoming a Mr. Olympia, but I definitely see him having the potential to place higher than this. And then his ab and thigh shot, honestly, is just, once again, between Nathan De Asha and Brandon Curry, man. It's pretty much like a two-man battle in his second call-out. Not a knock on Cedric or Joshua. Cedric doesn't seem to be all the way in his pose or having the best execution of this pose. And Joshua just has a very wide midsection. But in this pose, once again, I want to go with Brandon Curry, but Nathan De Asha has the leg size. But his midsection does look a little wider than Brandon Curry's. Once again, I would probably take Brandon Curry in this pose in all honesty. So, I mean, if it came down to it, I'm not an IFBB judge, but I may have had Brandon Curry placed ahead of Nathan De Asha in this competition. And on to the most muscular pose. And honestly, this is where Joshua Lenarowitz shines. This is actually a pretty good pose for him. He actually looks the best in this pose, in my opinion. Brandon Curry looks pretty good as well. Nathan De Asha looks like he may not be all the way into this pose, but he also looks pretty good. Joshua just has like kind of this freak factor, like I said, Branch Warren kind of physique. You just see a lot of stuff going on, just a lot of stuff popping, veins, striations, separations. You can even see the abs pretty good in this photo. And Cedric, honestly, is kind of getting screwed. He has a big shadow over him. Also, Brandon Curry is too. Brandon Curry has a crazy crab. So, I mean, honestly, you can kind of take your pick. Joshua looks great. You could also go with Nathan, or you could go with Brandon Curry, pretty much either way. But that's going to be the breakdown, guys, as far as the call-outs. And if you've ever watched one of my revisited videos, at the end of the videos, I break down the top 5 and usually the top 6. But for this video, I'll actually be breaking down the whole top 10. Pretty much just giving you guys a breakdown on these guys as far as this year. Maybe in a couple updates to how they are now. But pretty much how I feel on their placing at this competition. So starting off with 10th place, we had Sergio Mcmillan. And Sergio Mcmillan still to this day has all the potential in the world. Cedric still hasn't nailed it in all honesty, sadly. He placed very low at the Legion Sports Festival. I believe he was going to place around 8th or 9th. But he actually didn't finish the competition because he said he's very sick. But this was this is pretty on par for Sergio Mcmillan. This isn't one of his better showings. Cedric usually looks better at the Arnold Classic. I've heard a lot of people say Cedric pretty much always does the Arnold and he isn't able to nail it at the Mr. Olympia. But still, Cedric has all the potential in the world and maybe one of the best structures for bodybuilding. And in 9th place, we have Joshua Lenarowitz. And honestly, as I stated in the video, I didn't know who this guy was prior to making this. Amazing physique, man. This guy's honestly a freak. Kind of reminds me of Branch Warren. He doesn't have the same size in the legs or like the hamstrings, the glutes. He pretty much, when I'm comparing him to Branch Warren, I'm just saying like freak factor. He has a lot of veins. You know, he isn't built up the best structurally. He just seems like a guy that works really hard. But from looking at his physique, This was probably later in his career, and I'm pretty sure he was better earlier in his career. And placing 8th at this competition, we actually had number 15, Brandon Curry, who ended up becoming the 15th Mr. Olympia. And look at this back double bicep, man. Brandon Curry was shredded. And as you guys seen from the breakdown, going through the poses, I honestly may have had him ahead of Nathan De Asha. But keep in mind, I'm not an IFBB Pro judge, and I'm just looking at pictures off the internet, guys, which doesn't tell the full story at all. But this was an amazing package from Brandon Curry. And I'm not going to say I could potentially see him becoming a Mr. Olympia, but I could definitely see him moving up. And Brandon, even at his age around 38, 39, he's still continuing to improve every year. And for the past 3 years has been the top 2 bodybuilders in the world. And placing 7th in this competition in 2017 was Nathan De Asha. And Nathan took some time away from the stage as of recently. I'm talking around like 2020. And 2021, a lot of people just starting to know about Nathan De Asha. He won 3 pro shows this year. He won the Arnold UK. He won the Europa Pro, beating out Roelly Winklaar, and the Yamamoto Cup, beating out Roelly Winklaar again. But Nathan has already placed in the top 7 actually at the Mr. Olympia. But as you guys know, as of recent, Nathan was beaten by Rafael Brandao, Regan Grimes, and Samson Dowda. So going into the 22 Mr. Olympia is going to be very interesting to see. This was a very impressive package from Nathan De Asha. He's definitely grown and improved more, and he's more conditioned from behind. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do in 2022. Now in 6th place, even though we didn't get to see him in the callouts, we had the beast Roelly Winklaar. And as you guys can see here, and as I've said numerous times, and I hate it, Roelly has never really brought amazing conditioning. He's probably only had great conditioning maybe twice in his career, and I know it's sad to say, because look at this front relax. It's probably the greatest of all time. Roelly is just such a freak, man, but he's just never able to come in condition. And man, just so much potential. But with Roelly being in his 40s, I'm not sure if we're ever going to get to see a better package of Roelly Winklaar. I did a revisitation of the 2018 Mr. Olympia, which was one of Roelly's best physiques. If you guys haven't seen that video, go ahead and check it out. And placing in 5th place in his lineup was actually number 14, Shawn Rhoden, rest in peace. Amazing physique, man, and he honestly could have placed ahead of Dexter Jackson. I know you guys didn't get to see him in the callouts, but Shawn Rhoden was a little smaller here than he ended up being in the next 2 years. You guys can see in like the lat width and even like in the delts. And Shawn doesn't seem too separated in the quads from the front. But man, look at the side chest. Like I always say, not the standard execution. He kind of holds his arm outward, but looks amazing, man. And he hits the side tricep kind of in a classic manner. I don't really like it, but it kind of looks good for his physique because he has the abs and overall just has an amazing flow. But Shawn Rhoden taking 5th in his lineup, guys, you definitely can see how stacked this lineup was. We had 2 Mr. Olympias not even in the top 3 who ended up being Mr. Olympias. But in 4th place, another Mr. Olympia, 2008 Mr. Olympia, Dexter the Blade Jackson. And honestly, man, Shawn Rhoden possibly could have edged him out. But once again, I wasn't there in person, and I didn't look at the side-by-side comparison between these guys. But Dexter is a legend, of course. I believe Dexter finished his career with 29 pro wins. I believe Dexter won like 9 Arnold Classics, man. The Blade, in some people's eyes, the greatest bodybuilder of all time just because of consistency. I believe he may have competed in 20 or even more than 20 Mr. Olympias, man. Amazing physique. And 4th place at this Olympia, very stacked lineup, man. It just goes to show you how far good conditioning, I mean, good genetics can take you, man. Dexter Jackson is literally just definition of hard work and also amazing genetics. And placing 3rd place in this competition, one of my favorite physiques, William Bonac, man. Look at this side chest. Look at the back double bicep. Look at the lat insertions. Look at the glutes. Just completely shredded, man. He's almost like a slightly smaller Phil Heath. And I'm glad I got to look back at some of these older competitions because I haven't seen the best versions of William Bonac. And around 2017, 2018 were probably some of his best versions. Look at the side chest. Look at the bubbliness in the chest, the delts, the arms. Look at the quads and the front double bicep. Just, oh my God, man, the conqueror. But William took 3rd in this competition. Very deserved. Very deserved. I don't think he could have placed ahead of Big Ramy. And in second place in this competition, we actually had Big Ramy William who is also a two-time Mr. Olympia. Guys, this lineup had Big Ramy, Dexter Jackson, Brandon Curry, Phil Heath, and Shawn Rhoden. It was 5 Mr. Olympias in this lineup, man. That is insane. But going through the pictures, honestly, it looked like even though Big Ramy wasn't in the best condition, looks like he should have beat Phil Heath. Honestly, the midsection issue was just too glaring. It's just something you can't look over. If Phil maybe had like a leg injury or a torn bicep or something, it could be something you could look over. He could probably beat these guys. You know, Dorian Yates won with torn bicep. I believe maybe even with a torn tricep. But just the midsection, it completely messes up the flow for both front poses and some of the side poses. But this was an incredible version of Big Ramy, and you guys know the rest of the story. And winning this show and claiming his 7th Sandow was Phil they give Heath. And this is the last Sandow that Phil Heath will win. And man, amazing physique. The best of all time in my opinion, man. But this year, the midsection issues just started to get out of hand. And I believe at this point, this was actually Phil having hernia issues. It wasn't like a protrusion issue or maybe, you know, GH gut or whatever. Phil actually had an issue and he ended up having to have surgery. I'm not sure if it was after this Olympia or after the next Olympia that he lost. Actually, I believe he had surgery after this Olympia and he pushed it hard for the 2018 Mr. Olympia when he lost and he broke the mesh in his stomach and had to get another surgery after 2018. So, but there's just my little backstory on Phil Heath because not a lot of people know that Phil actually had an injury in his stomach and it isn't just a bubble gut. But this was an amazing show to review, man. In all honesty, I could have seen Big Ramy win this show. But when you're the champ and you have 6 Sandows, you're going to have to knock out the champ. You can't just come in and edge him out. You're going to have to knock Phil Heath all the way out. And I don't think Big Ramy did that at all. William Bonac arguably could have placed second, possibly. I really liked his physique in this. But Big Ramy is just so huge, I don't think William would have edged him out. But William has beat Big Ramy before, guys. Keep that in mind. But I hope you guys did indeed enjoy this video, man. Like, comment, and sub. It helps with the algorithm. If you made it this far, you a real one. I'm out.